Yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Vitamin C's with me, your boy Adam Taylor. As usual, I'm joined by my homie, my compadre, my co-host in crime, Mr. Tim Sheils. What's poppin', Tim?
Not much, man. Just kind of been hanging out, just trying to take everything in. It's been a little bit fast for me the past couple of days. I know we haven't recorded in a little bit, had some personal stuff going on.
I tried it once. Do you remember the last episode? And I was like, I couldn't do it.
Do not want.
I'm back. I'm back to, I'd say about 85, 90% now. Whatever it was completely shook me to my core, man. But I'm back now. So, we're back on the usual schedule. And most importantly, I'm not the only one that's back. Robert Williams is back, which means me and Robert Williams have one thing in common. It's not that I'm super athletic, because that's not true. But we're both back, I wish I was as athletic as Rob Williams. Dude can jump out the gym.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he's looked pretty solid in his return. We saw him get his first start. That was interesting. I know we've got Marcus Smart sidelined. It looks like he's gotten upgraded for the upcoming game against the Pelicans. I think Robert has been put to questionable. So I think that's
leave him out. Rest the dude. Rest him. He done more than enough against the
play him
Bulls.
Against the Nets, to be honest.
The Pelicans don't have Zion's not playing. I don't think Brandon Ingram's playing. Sit it out, Rob. I'm cool with that. Yeah, it's the Pelicans as well. I would have liked them to be at full strength because they've been having a really good season. I like that little core they've got of CJ, Zion, and Brandon Ingram. A big Valanciunas guy.
You've loved Jonas. You've loved Valanciunas. I remember you pushing hard when he was with Memphis.
Yeah, dude. A big Jonas Valanciunas guy. But, that's by the by. That's not what we're here to talk about today. We're not doing a preview of that game. We're not here to talk about that game at all, any more than what we already have, to be quite honest. We spent far too long talking about the Pelicans, all 20 seconds of it. What we're here to talk about is some trade deadline stuff. Trade deadline February 9, so it's officially less than a month away. It's officially official. There's less than a month until the trade deadline. I'm not sure that the Celtics really need to start tinkering with the rotation. I'm not sure they need to add anything new. But why the hell not? We're going to talk about it anyway because, people like this stuff.
Free content.
Yeah, I mean, it's low-hanging fruit.
Free real estate.
It's low-hanging fruit. Low-hanging fruit usually poisonous, but we're going to see how it goes anyway. Yeah. So, Tim, I want to let you, I know you went and done the research. I'm just clicking over to our little Google sheet. Look how professional we are with a Google sheet and stuff.
It's all prepped.
I'm telling you, dude, we put the effort into this one. So I'm going to, before we do that, have you seen that guy on TikTok? He's like a southern guy, from Louisiana and that. And he just does loads of he cooks massive meals and he's like, I want to get this dude. Let me find him, man. Have you not seen him?
No, I don't think every time I have, it's not against my will or anything. I have no idea who this is.
The word dude is really big in my vocabulary anyway. I use it all the time. What's up, dude? Yeah, man. Yeah, that dude's cool. Yeah, that dude's sick. I use it all the time, just in passing. And I've been watching this guy's TikTok videos, and now whenever I say the word dude, I'm just I don't say it the same way he does, and his way just sounds so much cooler. So I'm trying to phase myself out of saying dude because I don't have that southern accent. I just wanted to point it out. I'll find the name of it as well. I'll go on my phone in a moment and have a look.
All right.
But until then, let us know what picks they've got, dude.
So, I'm going to go ahead and swear by this. I know I've mentioned it before, but Fanspo, definitely the best trade machine. They've got everything on there, and that's what I'm using as a reference for all this stuff. Great promo. So after making some trades, they do not have a 2023 first rounder for this upcoming draft. They have 3 second rounders. One is from Portland. One is going to either be from Houston, Dallas, or Miami. I think that's more of a protections or conditional thing. And then they have a 2023 second rounder from Orlando. After that, the Celtics will have a 2024 first rounder, 2025 first rounder, 2026, 27. They will not have 2028, but I will get to that in just a sec. And then in 2029, they will have a first rounder and a second rounder, all of those picks being their own. Now, the 2028 does not necessarily mean that they don't have it. The one caveat is that there is a potential first round pick swap with the San Antonio Spurs, which was part of the deal that brought Derek White to Boston.
Perfectly fine. Do it every time.
And I mean, that's fine.
Do it
and
every time.
The benefit actually is if they end up making any kind of deal with San Antonio, not saying they will, and I don't think any of the targets that we mentioned today are on the Spurs last time I checked, but if they were to make a deal with the Spurs, they could potentially work out some kind of change with that 2028 pick. They could make it, an outright pick swap, like no swap. They just get the first rounder, put some protections on it. That's something that they could do. It's one of the benefits of potentially making a deal with San Antonio. However, moving on to trade exceptions, and this is where a lot of stuff matters.
Before we do,
oh geez, what did I miss?
His name on TikTok, if you can see it on the camera, I don't know if you can. It's Stale Cracker.
Stale Cracker.
6 million followers, so he just cooks loads of random. It is what it is, dude. I just wanted to point it out because I told everybody, tell them what his name was. That's what his name is.
I will
trade
Google
exception
after. So for the trade exceptions,
free promo.
So the big thing that's coming up, the largest trade exception the Celtics have, talked about it before, 6.9 million trade exception from trading Juancho Hernangomez. That expires in a week. So actually, this is a great time to record this because once that expires, the largest trade exception that the Celtics will have will be the Dennis Schroeder trade exception, which is about 5.89 million. Now, the rest of the trade exceptions that Boston has, usually the highest one is about 2.1 million, just under 2.2. And then they've got a couple other ones that are around 1.78, 1.67 roughly. And those are all from the trades of PJ Dozier, Bol, Bruno Fernando, and Enes Freedom.
I just want to point out here that Bol was having himself a hell of a season. PJ Dozier's just ended up on, I think it's a 10-day with the Kings. So, he's just trying to figure some stuff out. And Bruno Fernando, they love him over in Houston. He's like their energy guy off the bench. So it's good to see that 3 of these trades, well, 2 technically, Schroeder actually as well, because he's with the Lakers now. So 3 of these trades in Bol, Schroeder and Fernando have actually all ended up well for the players as well. I like it when that happens. I mean, I'm not a Schroeder guy personally, but I like it when guys get traded and they actually go somewhere where they can figure it out, right? We saw it as well with Aaron Nesmith. We saw it with Romeo Langford. And for me, I'm just like the optics of that always look good. Because if the Celtics do trade you, they're trading you somewhere where you're going to have an opportunity to actually make an impact and develop as a player rather than just being traded because they don't really care about you. So I just want to point that out because I think that in the grand scheme of things, that also has some weight to it, whether that be between players, with agents, whatever it may be. I just personally think that's important.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair point to make when talking about some of these other guys where it's just like they couldn't crack the rotation for the Celtics. So a lot of these guys being able to be moved to situations where they're definitely going to get playing time, it goes a long way, and I think it made some goodwill. I think the only thing that's a downside to it is you hear a lot of fans complain like, well, like, look at this guy. They traded him away and like he went on to have like this stellar career or, he's looking really
minutes, dude.
Exactly. Yeah. That's always the caveat with it, right?
I mean,
like
the only one really
minutes
in this trade exception list, I mean, like Juancho, like it doesn't really matter whether he's good or not anymore because, it's Bo Cruz.
Yeah.
His name ain't Juancho anymore. It's Bo Cruz. And then Freedom did what Freedom did. Like he went a little bit off the reservation is what it is. Yeah. Everybody else, they're all having good seasons wherever they are. So it's a big plus for me.
But point being is those trade exceptions, all of them will be gone by February 9th, which is, in fact, the trade deadline.
Which also is less than a month away.
Yes, once again, less than a month away.
But the Juancho one's a week away, right? January 18th. So 7 days from today.
If the Celtics are looking to make any kind of move that doesn't require them, moving a player, keep in mind they do have an open roster spot right now, so that goes a long way. But if they were looking to just outright absorb salary, and it's roughly around that mark, they've got a week to do it, basically without sending out anyone else, like moving from Gallinari, which is something that we're going to talk about a little bit today. So roster spots as well. The Celtics have one open roster spot as it currently stands. That is from trading Noah Vonleh in a salary dump to the Spurs. He was immediately waived by them. And
Noah
they also
Vonleh.
Yeah, and they waived Georgie Deng, and then they added Dieng back. So like that was kind of just like a net move where they were just getting some cash. It basically evened out. Celtics cleared off some non-guaranteed money. And that also ties into the next part because they no longer have any non-guaranteed contracts. That deadline passed on January 10th. They basically had until Saturday to decide if they were going to move the contracts of Luke Kornet or if they were going to move the Justin Jackson contract. Now, both of those deals are guaranteed. Kornet's deal, however, is the only one that has a second year. So it's $2.13 million cap hit now guaranteed, $2.4 million next year, but that is non-guaranteed. And Justin Jackson's is a 1 year, $2.13 million deal. And he will be gone after the season's over.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I mean, that's pretty likely. And just to throw them in there as well, J.D. Davison and Fiondo Kabengele, both of those guys are on two-way deals. I know that you're pretty high on Davison and Kabengele.
I wasn't though. Like, if you go back and like you read the scouting report, I thought he had a long way to go to be NBA ready. He's proving me wrong, and that's a good thing. Like, I don't claim to be an expert at this stuff. Like, he's proving me wrong, and that's great. And now I want to see if he can replicate. What did he have? 16 points, 16 assists in his last game for Maine.
He was like one assist shy of a record, I think.
Yeah, I think 1 or 2 shy. Like, I'd like to see him come. I think it was 1 shy of tying the record, and then 1 shy and 2 shy of breaking the record.
Yeah,
like I want to see him get some minutes in the NBA. So I wouldn't mind. And obviously, he can do that as a two-way guy. They don't need to open a roster spot for that. But I'm very cognizant of what they did last year for Kornet and for Hauser, where they created some roster space towards the trade deadline, and then they converted their two-way deals to give them a little bit more flexibility and then be able to plug and play Kornet in the playoffs if they needed. But more importantly, they spent most of that year just training with the team constantly, not having to split their time between Maine and Boston after they got their contracts got upgraded. And like you've seen what it's done for their development. So I wouldn't mind that for J.D. Davison. But to do that, then you're really going to need to move on from someone like Pritchard. And, Pritchard, I've had my say about Pritchard on this show a few times where I don't think they should move him, but I understand if they do. I like J.D. Davison a lot at the moment. I think that he gives you something you don't have from a guard at the moment. He can beat guys off the dribble. He's explosive, he's incredibly athletic, can move the rock. Shot's not there yet, I don't think. I think it's going to be very much a... kind of like a Marcus Smart, early Marcus Smart thing where he's going to be really good at 1 or 2 things and everything else is going to be like a slow burn development. But look, Smart's a reliable shooter at this point, even so at the same time, you always had that elite defense and then he's developed as a passer, he's developed as a shooter. You always had the hustle, the winning plays. I think Davison can bring something at the moment, but I'm just not sure that he's ever going to get that path right. I mean, we saw the same with Neesmith. We saw the same with Langford. They could bring something, but the path just wasn't there for them. And it might be the same for Davison as well.
And I think this is where like the Celtics currently will run into problems with some of these younger players, guys that need developmental minutes. Like unless you're just stashing them in the G League and that's kind of where they're sitting, you're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place where if they're not able to give you enough to justify like serious rotational minutes, then it's really going to be hard for them to develop into what you think they could become. Davison's an interesting case because I think, he's so athletic, like so explosive, and that kind of athleticism isn't necessarily, it's not that it's not commonplace, but it is special still at the NBA level to be that explosive of an athlete.
You think of the athletic guards right now, like obviously Ja, but he's different level.
That's a whole other thing.
He's got twitchiness there. He's got Ja's just a different level of player. Never mind the athleticism. Like he's just a better all around guy, like guard. I'm not saying that J.D. Davison can ever be anywhere near that, but what I'm saying is that the athleticism. You take away Ja's athleticism, is he still Ja? Is what I'm getting.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think I've seen people kind of say like maybe he could be like a John Wall type guard, and I can see that, just a rip and run guy, same as like prime Westbrook. I don't think he's got the playmaking ability of Westbrook. I mean, 16 assists in the G League is great. Is it still 16 assists if you're getting those minutes in the NBA? I don't think so. Maybe, but like that's the kind of like body type and the kind of athletic type that he brings. Now, this isn't a JD Davison episode. If people want that, let us know in the comments, and we'll pull some clips and we'll go deep, and we can do that. That's not a problem at all. But this isn't that, right? So, so now everybody's aware of what picks are available, what trade exceptions are available, what players have become guaranteed. There's one open roster spot. Let's talk some trades. Let's talk potential ideas. So a couple of these we're going to have spoke about before, because Celtics needs are very well defined. Their available money is very minimal. So you are shopping in a very small pool of players, and names are going to continue to get repeated. You'll see if you search Celtics trade rumors, it's the same 5 or 6 guys. We've tried to be a bit creative with 1 or 2 of them, but even then, their names would have been mentioned at some point between last off season and now. That's just is what it is, right? So we're going to start with somebody that I've pushed before, and I'm going to keep it short because you can always go back and watch that episode. You know, I don't want to keep going over the same shit. Which is Naz Reid. I like Naz Reid. I think that he's in a really bad position right now behind Towns and Gobert. His minutes are down. His production's down as a result. I think that he would be an upgrade over Luke Cornett. I think he would be a solid addition to the rotation, and I genuinely believe he can walk through the door and get minutes. You know, I think he's good enough to get minutes straight off the bat. He's going to be a backup. He's a backup this year anyway. He's only earning 1.9 mil. So when you add the tax into that, you know, you're probably coming closer to 6, but it's still like, it's money worth spending because you get size, you get hustle, you get speed, a little bit of explosiveness, and he can stretch the floor a little bit so you can keep running that 5-out system. Now, the thing is, like, when you're doing that with like Rob, the reason you can still run that 5-out with Rob is because of his passing, right? Because the guy can pass. He's one of the best passing bigs in the league. So when you've got Rob there, you've still got a reason to be able to keep him on the perimeter. With Reid, he can score. So can Cornett, but I think Naz Reid is a better 3-point shooter than Cornett. I also think he's a better rim roller than what Cornett is. So he can slip screens a little bit more easily. He can navigate his body through traffic a little bit more. 1.9 million, I like it. I like it a lot.
It's hard not to, right? Because of just the cap hit. I mean, I obviously still worry. It's an expiring deal, but again, if his minutes are down, he hasn't exactly had the best opportunity in Minnesota. You have no idea what like the kind of interest would be in the offseason. It still would worry me a little bit. I don't really want to go ahead and trade for anyone that's got, you know, free agency coming up, because I think it really just depends on what that cost is. Like if it's a second rounder or 2 second rounders, you know, it's
you know, maybe you can do Justin Jackson plus a second or a future first.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, my outlook on it is I don't care if he walks at the end of the season. If it costs you Justin Jackson and a second rounder,
you can eat that. You can take that on the chin.
Walk if you need to, dude. My question is, does he improve your chances in the second half of the season and the postseason? If the answer is yes, then forget what happens in the summer. That's the summer's problem, right? I'm talking right now. Like, if he improves, then I'm down, and I genuinely believe he improves your big man rotation. So for me, you know, 1.9 mil, if you can get Justin Jackson, a second round pick, maybe even 2 seconds. I'm cool with that. Now I don't know whether the Timberwolves will be happy with that deal. You know, but Rudy started to play well now. I saw a tweet. I think it was Nikias Duncan tweeted out over the last 3 games, he's averaging 20 points and 15 rebounds. He's figuring it out. Karl Anthony Towns is figuring it out. Reid's probably not going to re-sign there anyway. Why not get a look at another wing and get a couple of second round picks that you could either flip or you can use on getting some low cost talent to build around your team later in, like, moving forward. So I think it's a deal that could work.
Yeah, I think that's true. Next one that we have on the list is this is another one that we've talked about, and another guy that has definitely fallen out of the good graces with the team that he's with right now.
For the second time, right? Like, this is the first time it's happened to him, man.
I don't blame him on the second time as much because of the situation. But we are talking about Cam Reddish, who's currently with the Knicks. We talked about it previously before, but I still think it's interesting that the Knicks went out and traded for him, even though Tom Thibodeau has like zero intention of wanting to play him. Like, I mean, they shut him down in December, right? Like, he hasn't really played since December, which is rough.
I just think that this is a guy that came into the league with huge expectations. What was his 10th overall pick? He was a lottery pick for sure.
Yeah.
Like, you know, played alongside Zion at college. Came into the league. Everyone thought he was going to be this big time scoring 3-and-D wing. Never worked out for him in Atlanta for whatever reason. There was a lot of wing depth in front of him there. Moves to New York, isn't working there either. Now, for me, if you've bottomed out of two teams, then my question is, are you really worth a second round pick? I want some protections on that pick. Because again, the question is, does he improve what you've already got? And the answer is, we don't know. We don't know. Reddish has been in bad situations, right? New York is a bad situation. I think the talent evaluation on the Knicks coaching staff is poor. They took far too long to move into using quickly more frequently. RJ has been developing slower than what you'd expect. Obi Toppin, another guy that has more talent than what's being utilized. I just think that their talent evaluation and talent development in New York is quite poor. And I'd say the same for Atlanta as well. I mean, DeAndre Hunter is probably their biggest success story outside of Trae Young, and Trae Young was Trae Young. He was going to hit, didn't matter where he went. So when you take Trae Young out of the equation, they're criminally underutilizing John Collins. He's just in a really bad spot there. I mean, it's criminal. DeAndre Hunter has developed in spite of injury issues, but where's everybody else they drafted? Because they drafted a few. Right? Kevin Huerter's having one of his best seasons ever. And
in Sacramento.
Yeah, exactly, dude. Look, because they're putting the ball in his hands and trusting him as a playmaker. So Reddish has been in two bad talent evaluation and talent development spots. So my point is, you don't know what he's capable of on a team like Boston, where you're just put in positions to be the best version of what you are now, and then we'll worry about what you can be during the summer months. But my issue is, does he make you better now? And I just don't see the answer being yes.
It's a wild card, right? We're talking about development. This is something we talked about with him before. Like, he's a young player who needs minutes to develop, and he's been in two not great situations. And he's also going to be hitting free agency. He would be a restricted free agent. His qualifying offer would be $8.1 million. And on top of that, keep in mind, with qualifying offers, there is a cap hold there until he's inked a deal. So that'd be like 17.86.
No one's extending that qualifying offer.
Exactly.
This is right. You don't extend it, he becomes unrestricted. You're probably getting him cheaper than that $8 million a year as an unrestricted free agent. The reason his qualifying offer is so high is because he was a lottery pick.
Exactly. It's not based on talent. It's based about where he was taken in the draft. So
which was meant to be based on talent.
Yeah.
And most likely is based on talent. It's just, like I say, two bad situations. There is something there. I think he could be an improvement on the wing, but there's also a chance that he just bombs, and then you filled that roster spot and you got nothing out of it. At which point, why bother? I mean, the Celtics aren't in a position right now to need to take on reclamation projects.
It's a gamble too.
Yeah, that's what I mean, right? Like, the Magic making a move for him, the Jazz,
that makes a lot of sense.
Teams like that, the Pistons, any rebuilding team, Cam Reddish makes sense. Give him room to play through his issues, blah, 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 develop him properly. They make sense. A team that's like, we're contending right now. We're trying to make a move or two moves that take us from being top 3 teams in the league to top 2, or unquestionably the most talented, deepest team. Those are the moves you want to make. And Cam Reddish just doesn't feel that for me.
Puts a lot of pressure on him too, as a player coming into a new situation. Like, you have to live up to those expectations, and you know what the team's trying to accomplish. So no way. But there is another Knicks player that I like, and I want your thoughts on it. It's a little bit trickier. You're not going to be able to absorb him straight into a trade exception. You would have to look at cobbling together money. That might mean moving on from Danilo Gallinari, which is a whole can of worms that we're going to be opening up. But Isaiah Hartenstein, he's a $7.8 million cap hit for this season, and he is signed through next year. 2023-24 cap hit of $8.19 million, and he also has a 5% trade bonus, so you have to account for that in terms of your salary cap. But what are your thoughts?
I wanted the Celtics to make a run at Hartenstein last season when he was a free agent, right? Like, I'm sure if you just search my Twitter, you'll find me talking about Hartenstein. I'm big on him. I think he's another example of the Knicks having poor talent development and talent recognition. Not so much in not making him better, but in terms of realizing, hey, the way we play and the way Hartenstein plays, it don't work. There's no fit there. If you look at how he played for the Clippers last season, he was a high level backup big man. Good passer, good rebounder, good finisher, good footwork. Now he's in New York. Those numbers are kind of dropped. The impact levels dropped significantly as well. It's just not really a great fit for him and for the Knicks. I've done a fanspo trade and I was like, hey, I don't want to give them Peyton Pritchard because I think Pritchard deserves a bit more. No offense to the Knicks. Like, I've got Knicks fans. I've got fans that are friends that are Knicks fans.
Yeah.
But because of that, I hear all the horror stories as well. So, I was looking at like Danilo Gallinari, a second-round pick, just to kind of sweeten the deal, and Justin Jackson. And I feel like everyone's going to be like, oh, it's an overpay. Well, Gallinari's not going to play this year. Justin Jackson's not getting minutes anyway. You bring in Hartenstein. You open up an extra roster spot where you can kind of have a little bit more wiggle room in free agency and in the buyout market with your disabled player exception. The Knicks are more likely to reject that than Boston are not to offer it, because I think that makes sense, right? Like, you've moved on from Vonleh. If you want to give them a big man, then maybe you go Luke Cornet instead of Justin Jackson. So then you're keeping a bit more balance on your roster and you don't have that additional big. Luke Cornet's got history with the Knicks anyway, so I think he played for their G League team, if I remember, the Westchester Knicks. I think he was drafted by the Knicks, actually, weren't he, Cornet? I think so.
Yes, Cornet was drafted by the Knicks.
He was drafted by the Knicks. Someone bibbing, I was rude of them while I'm talking on my show. So I think that makes more sense. Gallo, Cornet in a second, maybe 2 seconds, because I think that out of the 3 names we've mentioned right now, I have Hartenstein as a more impactful big man than I have Naz Reid when he's playing in a good system. And I don't hold Reddish in high regard at the moment for the Celtics, not in terms of him as a player, just for fit. So Hartenstein for me is, I'd make that deal 10 times out of 10. And you don't have to worry about free agency at the end of the year like you would with Naz.
Yeah, and I think that, it clears up the issue of trying to have to hunt for another rotational big in the offseason.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about the injury cover for Gallinari. Again, we've seen plenty of highlights of him now, like getting back on the floor. He's getting shots up. He's clearly working on his rehab. And a lot of people are excited about that, but I still don't know how much faith I can put in Gallinari coming back.
And what were we expecting of him anyway? Rotational
big who can sharpshoot.
But he can't defend.
Yeah, exactly.
He can, at this point in his career, before the knee injury, he was a net negative on defense and everybody knew it. So you're coming back off this injury, you're going to be even less mobile. You're basically a stationary shooter at this point. You're a high level stationary shooter, but
stationary regardless.
I don't see what value you hold in the postseason, really. Hauser can do what you can do. Grant Williams can do what you can do, but both of them are far more mobile. You don't need the big that can shoot anymore, really, because Hauser's kind of filling that role a little bit. Going with Hartenstein and moving on from Gallo, the optics aren't great, and I've spoke at length about that. But this is one of the only deals where I'm like, I like this for Boston. If they were going to do this deal, I'd feel very, very comfortable.
Yeah, the one thing I will say, you mentioned the disabled player exception, which I, 1, neglected to include on here, but 2, if they were to use it... We're
talking of trades, so it's okay.
Yeah, well, the DPE, they're going to have to go ahead and use before they would do that deal, because once you go ahead and you move Gallinari, you do lose that disabled player exception.
I'd lose it then. Lose it. I don't care.
You got the roster spot open. That's the only thing too. Is if you wanted to, if you think
JD Davison,
that's fair too. Moving on though, I think we're both agreed on Hartenstein.
He's my number 1 prospect so far.
Here's another one that I like because I think they could use another player who could play out the 2 or 3 spot. Javonte Green. Now, familiar friend, obviously, really close with Jason Tatum.
Savage Woo.
Yes. 1.81 million cap hit. He is an expiring deal. And another little wrinkle is he just went under arthroscopic knee surgery. He's going to miss roughly 2 weeks. So he'll probably miss about the rest of this month, just about leading into the trade deadline. The cost is really, really low. You could probably get him for a second rounder.
I know that. Happy.
Yeah, it would make Tatum happy. He's familiar. You know what he can do in transition, and that's a good thing.
He's improved a bit defensively as well.
Mm-hmm. And that 3 ball's gotten a little bit better too, I think, just off the optics. I'd have to look at the numbers.
And it's a Savage Woo.
Yeah, Savage Woo.
I'm down. Like, yeah, no,
I'm with it. We don't need to spend too much time. Yeah, we don't need to spend too much talking on him. Yeah, exactly.
I also think that he left Boston and actually carved out a role for himself on a fairly deep team. I mean, I wouldn't say deep. Like they were deep 1 through 7, and Green was kind of the 8th guy. But he's been impactful. He's held his own in a significantly larger role than what we saw him playing in Boston. If he came back, he'd have to kind of resume the role he had before, where it was spot minutes, a bit of impact. Hey, we need some above the rim play from a wing. Probably not great for him, but at the same time, you're on a contending team. One of your best friends is on the team with you. You know, those two guys speak about each other all the time. I'd be fine with it. I'm down for the vibes. Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm game. And there's another Bulls player that I do like. It's another wing, and that would be Derek Jones Jr. $3.2 million cap hit for this season. And then next year, it'll be a 2023-24 player option of about 3.36. So you don't have entire control there. The player does have to opt in. Depending on how things would go, he probably would opt in, or he might, if he thinks that he can get a bigger contract in free agency. I'm not entirely sure about that. He could opt out and try and sign a bigger deal either with the Celtics or elsewhere. But Derek Jones, I think, fits a lot of needs that the team would want. Having another backup wing would be good. He's pretty explosive as an athlete, does a little bit of everything. What are your thoughts?
I like Derek Jones. I think I'll put him directly underneath Hartenstein at number 2 on my list of, hey, I'd like this. I think that you've got the team option, so you're going to keep him. No, you're not going to trade for him.
Player option, so he could make the decision.
So I looked at the Sadiq Bey one.
Oh, good. Well, that's the next one.
Yeah, I gave it away.
Damn it!
You got the player option. I can't see. He most likely, if you make a deep run, go to the conference finals or the finals, he's probably going to be like, I'll take 1 year of less money compared to what I could get on the market to have another year of contending, or at least that's what you'd hope. I think that in terms of impact, in terms of value, he brings a ton. He definitely upgrades your wing rotation. He definitely helps fit into that defense. He can do a lot. I would be okay with that trade, like depending on who you give up, right? It's 3.2 million cap hit, so you could do like a Justin Jackson and Peyton Pritchard with a pick. And that could probably sweeten the deal. And one of the things that Chicago have really struggled with is needing a backup ball handler. They tried it with Goran Dragic, hasn't really worked. He's showing his age now. Kobe White just hasn't been the 6th man that they hoped he'd become when they drafted him. Lonzo Ball's never healthy. So giving them somebody like Pritchard that can push the pace, shoot the free, take a little bit of pressure off other guys, can play the 2 guard as well. We saw under Brad Stevens in his first year playing shooting guard position as an off-ball scorer. So he can play alongside Kobe White. He can play alongside Lonzo Ball when needed if you need that floor spacing. I think Pritchard actually makes a lot of sense for the Bulls if they decide to hit the reset button. And then Justin Jackson's just to make the money work. So yeah, I'd be down.
Yeah. And I mean, he also would fit into the trade exceptions. So that's the good news too.
Yeah.
If you didn't want to. But I figure for Chicago especially, like, if you were looking to move on from Pritchard, it'd make a lot of sense. You give him a sharp shooting young guy who definitely could use some minutes to develop. They could be looking at a potential retooling and rebuild. We don't really know yet because Chicago's kind of...
It was a bad bunch of roster moves at the beginning anyway. Like it wasn't...
I still don't like the...
That's Chicago's problem, though.
Yeah, exactly. I don't like the Vucevic deal, but I mean...
I wouldn't have made those moves.
No. I think those are 2 guys, though, that you could target with Chicago between Javonte and Derek Jones Jr. Like, those are 2 guys that you could consider making a deal for. Now, our last 2 options, one of which...
this one away.
Is Sadiq Bey. Sadiq Bey. 2.96 million cap hit. Former ghost of Celtics draft day past, I guess you could say. A lot of
green hair, green stripes in his hair already.
It's a start, right? He's got a 2023-24 team option of 4.56 million, and has really fallen out of the rotation for Detroit, which I know he's having a little bit of a down year, but I don't get it. Like I don't get the drop off that much, and I don't understand why they're so eager to move on from him.
So I'm going to be dead honest here. I haven't seen enough of Sadiq Bey. Like I haven't watched enough of him to be like, hey, he sucks here, he's good here, he's bad here. I've seen the stats. I know he can shoot the free. I'm not sure what his defense is like. I'd be lying if I said I did. Because of that, I'll say yeah, but I know it's the first round draft pick's kind of the asking price. And I'm just like, would he get minutes? And I don't know how impactful he'd be because I just haven't watched him enough. So I'm going to have him. So far, I've got Isaiah Hartenstein 1, Derek Jones Jr. 3, Naz Reid 4. Then I'm going to have Sadiq Bey, then Javante Green, then Cam Reddish.
Okay. I don't hate that. I mean, that makes sense. I think the one thing I would say is his three ball has gone down pretty significantly. This season, he's down to 31.8% from three. On his career, he's a 35.4% shooter.
And even that's not brilliant.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that's not... I'd have to look at, like, 01, 02 and see if that career shooting percentage from three factors in this year's struggles. But on a team that he should be getting a good amount of playing time on and, like, getting development, he's not getting them. So I don't know what exactly is going on there. If it's just a matter of similar to, guys like Cam Reddish, like, is it just a change of situation that's needed? I don't know if I would toss up a first rounder for Sadiq Bey. I don't know what that interest is going to be. I think that's too much. I mean, like, again, it's not like he's not the same level of like Cam Reddish concern where it's like, I have no idea what this guy's going to be. Cause you've seen Sadiq Bey torch the Celtics from three. You know what he can do if you put him in the right situation. It's just a matter of whether or not, that's still there. Like, what's causing this fall off in his game so far this season? Is it just the Pistons being terrible as they tank for Wemby? Like, is that really what it is?
You'd expect him to be better than that because of the amount of minutes and like usage he's getting in touches. I don't know. Some players just have bad years. Grant Williams had one 2 years ago. It happens.
Exactly. So
it is what it is. Like, he could have worked on something in the off season and it's just completely screwed up his mechanics and then needs to go and tweak it next summer. It happens all the time. Kem Birch.
Yeah, Kem Birch, I was going to say, is our last one.
I like Kem Birch.
Kem Birch makes a lot of sense.
Throwback big, can defend, can rebound, can score in the post. Not high usage guy, pretty much a career backup dude. I'd be very comfortable if Kem Birch was the guy coming off the bench. Now, I don't know how you lean into a 5-out offense with Kem Birch there. That's kind of my only question. But in terms of like value, impact, being able to actually earn minutes and improve the big man rotation, I've got Birch directly underneath Hartenstein and above Naz Reid. And the reason I've got him above Naz Reid is because he's contracted for next year and Naz Reid isn't. That's literally the only reason. And I'm kind of contradicting myself because I'm like, you make moves for now and not next summer. But it's also, does Naz Reid go hero mode sometimes because he wants to earn more money next year? You have to take that into account. Is his mind going to be fully focused on making a run for the championship this year, or is part of it going to be balling out and getting numbers, at which point it's to the detriment of the team? Kem Birch won't have those issues. He's also a lot older, so he's kind of just like, yo, give me the ring. You know what I'm saying? I like Kem Birch. Does he fit in? I don't think he fits in the TPE, does he?
He does. 6.67 fits into that Juancho team.
Toronto are a dumpster fire right now. I don't know what you'd need to give them. I don't even know if they'd just be willing to give him up to create a TP of their own for their inevitable teardown. Yeah. It's possible. But Toronto look like a team you should really be hammering on to see how comfortable they are not being sellers right now. You know what I mean? I want to really test that resolve. Kem Birch for me is a great pickup.
Yeah, and I think in terms of like what it could potentially be in terms of financial impact, it's, you do have to consider the tax there. He would fit into that TPE. He'd be one of the more expensive options on our list today. That's going to only be second under Isaiah Hartenstein. So you have to consider that.
Hartenstein's worth it.
But yeah, and I think Kem Birch to a degree would be worth it.
It's like L'Oreal, dude. Worth it.
That was a good joke. I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah.
With Kem Birch, I think it's a good fit in terms of what you need. You need another rotational big that's going to be an upgrade over Luke Cornett. In terms of the cap hit, it's a little bit more than you'd hope for. But he is, again, going to fit into that role pretty well. It's a role that he's been filling for a little while now as a rotational big coming off the bench. So I don't hate it. And I think that the asking price will probably be really, really low, especially as Toronto does really go full tilt towards the rebuild. I mean, they're asking some astronomically high prices, but, they are taking or listening to offers on guys like Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, and Gary Trent Jr. as well. But all
He's
three of
super
those guys,
expensive.
all three of those guys are really expensive. But I was surprised at how big Gary Trent Jr.'s contract was.
I'm a big Gary Trent Jr. guy
it's
as well.
17.2 or $17.3 million.
Too much
way
for what Boston can pay.
Far too rich. Far too rich. But
I wish I was that rich.
Yeah, we all do, don't we?
I hope so. Otherwise, what are we doing here? All right, then. With that being said, we've kept these people for pretty much 40 minutes. If they've made it to the end, I applaud you.
Bless
if you didn't, how dare you? And we'll be back on Friday. And we actually will be back. Promise. On Friday.
Pinky swear.
Pinky swear. Tim, say bye.
Cheers.
Ah.